guys, and welcome back to the Rake. We have an awesome guest today, someone who I spend many hours with every week playing Mafia. It is Gillian Epp. She's a full-time cash pro located in Vancouver. How's it going?
Hey, I'm supposed to be Marle today, though, because everyone confuses me, but thank you for having me on the show.
You're cosplaying Marle. I think you're doing a good job of it, too.
So I first met Gillian at Run Up Reno, I think a couple times ago. And I didn't even talk to you, but someone said across the room, like, your sister's over there or something. And I was like, oh, my sister. And they pointed to you and I was like, oh, yeah, that girl does look like me. And we never ended up talking. But then we did play a lot together in Jimmy's game this past Run Up Reno. And yeah, it was like an ongoing thing that people kept saying we were twinsies. So I love it.
But it got to the point, like, it's so ridiculous that Marle and I were out for dinner with this guy and he was paying, and then we all agreed that, like, he shouldn't pay, we should put some money in and just put it all on blackjack. So I gave him $20 and he's like, Marle gave me $20. Like, he's out for dinner with us, like, we're sitting next to each other and he still confused us.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, because you were next. Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah,
At least you guys are both very cute. It's always a little, like, sad when someone's like, know who you look like, and then it's someone who's like 40 years older than you, or like.
Totally.
I used to always get Britney Spears, which I'm not sure is a compliment.
Britney Spears, what?
It's not a compliment, right?
Well, I just don't see it.
Yeah.
But she was hot when she was, like, in her prime. That was mean. I sound like a dude saying something like that.
Well, that's the key. You got to ask, okay, circa what year? Because everyone has bad years. Everyone has great years. So no matter who they say, it could be an insult. You never know.
Yeah, if it was, like, in the head shaving years, I don't know how I'd feel about that. But most of her life, she's been very attractive. Anyway.
Anyway, why don't we start off by talking about this crazy news that happened yesterday? Dan Bilzerian is a GG ambassador. Gillian, what are your thoughts off the top?
Well, I just saw Jamie's tweet, and you're going to have to convince me because I think we're kind of on opposite sides of this.
Really? Well, tell me your side.
Well, the thing is, like, it's hard to hate someone when you know them. And I've played a lot with Dan, and he's always been one of the warmest people at the table to me. In fact, like, so often when you're at the table, I want to take off my wig.
Is it?
I can't look at it any longer. Okay. So often when I'm at the table with guys, I feel like they only invite me to do stuff if they're hitting on me. And I never felt that way about Dan, but he was always, like, inviting me to go to the movies with his girlfriend, and I've been to his house and stuff. And that was all, like, pre-Instagram. And then now his Instagram profile, like, I don't even follow it. Like, it's totally not stuff that I'm interested in. And I don't know if I'd like him if I didn't know him pre his social media. But because of that, it's hard for me to hate him. And I think he does bring a lot of amateurs to the game, right?
Maybe. I don't hate him. I mean, that's, like, a very strong word for someone that I ignore 99.99999% of the year. Yesterday, I just was reading some stuff. The way he responded to Vanessa Cade when he's like, quiet down, ho, nobody knows who you are, and something like that. I'm like, that becomes more real. Like, I think the cartoon version of Dan Bilzerian's amazing. Like, I think his Instagram is cool. It's, like, it glamorizes stuff. It's almost all fake. I would bet money on it. But yeah. He even got caught, like, buying in chips and then taking pictures and leaving. Like, it's all, it's like the romanticized, like, fantasizing part of poker. So, like, I don't hate him. I think I made my screen name Dan Bilzerian on WSOP because I thought it was funny to, like, chat to people in the chat box and be like, hey, your girlfriend's over here. Anything you want to say to her? Like, I was just joking. I think he's a funny dude. But I think it gets more real when he starts interacting with women in poker and just being such a dick. I think that's where, like, there's a line crossing. And I don't doubt that I would probably like him in real life. I like most people in real life. It's just weird when a big brand wants somebody who's going to interact with women in our community like that when it's already kind of hard to get women to stick around.
It's funny, like, Gillian, you're not the first person I've heard that's had some good experiences with him in person. And I wonder, like, is this online thing just like an intentional character or something that he just, like, he wants to be like this bad boy? Like, I don't get it necessarily, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know, like, does he just think that, like, this is part of he wants the world to think he's this like asshole or something for like branding stuff?
Well, I think he's been very vocal in saying that. Like, it started as a way of getting back at his girlfriend, who was on social media, like posing with her new boyfriend and stuff like that. And Jamie's completely right. Like, that's not the real persona of him. Now, like, the comment to Vanessa Kate, the thing is, like, her comment was pretty scolding itself. Like, everyone talks about like the whole comment, and I'm probably not the best person to say something like that because I don't even understand what that word is. I don't, like, to me it's not an insult. I'm really bad with swear words, so I never know when people say like, oh, the C word's really terrible. I'm like, oh, is it? Like, I don't know. I don't have any kind of emotional response to these words. So someone just calling someone a hoe, maybe that's really bad and I don't get it. But she definitely said very scolding things to him.
Yeah, I think her comments like were not very nice, but at least they're based on something. She's like, here, you know, there's a lot of tweets where he's like pretty awful towards women. Like, if someone was like, Jamie, you need to speak out and all this, and I'm like, I'm not wasting my time on Twitter for like 7 hours talking about this. But they copied a bunch of tweets he'd sent, and they were like really, really nasty. And I think that poker does have a problem with misogyny, and it should be addressed, not by paying people who write horrible things about women. And yeah, her tweet was definitely not nice and probably was going to get a response, but it's like proving what she's saying in your response is probably a pretty bad way to win the battle there. Like, hey, you're a misogynistic asshole. And he's like, quiet down, ho. Nobody knows who you are. It's like, I mean, I love when people respond like that because I'm just like, see, you know, whatever.
It's interesting. So, I mean, that kind of takes me to my next question is just like, how much does this really affect women in poker, the influx of women in poker? And does this really discourage it at all, or is this kind of just nothing?
I think that's the important question, right? Like, if it is negative for females in poker, then I'm totally on board that he shouldn't be signed as an ambassador. But don't forget, he used to be an ambassador. Like, do you guys remember that with Antonio Esfandari and stuff? They had a site together. Yeah, so like Antonio Esfandari, like, so he's been, this isn't a new thing for him getting sponsorship, but his persona is definitely changed. Like, when he was with that, and I can't remember the name of the site, but when he was with them, he was like the playboy, like millionaire and stuff. And now he's definitely gone into this more misogynistic thing. But I guess that is the question. Like, how do amateurs feel like that? Or are they going to feel, is that going to affect the game negatively? I don't know. How do we figure that out?
GG is counting on it bringing in a lot of young males, which if it does, then, you know, they're getting their money's worth and they're somewhat tarnishing their brand in one way to some group, which might be a small group, which is women, and then maybe bolstering like their fan base with the younger males. I just want to make a point that there's like two different ways of, like, there's two different types of people that are like the playboy type. And Dan Bilzerian is like, if he didn't take it so far as to be an asshole too, and just be so disparaging to women, I feel like it's fine. Like, it's like, whatever, sexualizing everything. And like, the people are willing participants. Some of them get paid to model. It's like, they want that job. Nobody's getting used. I think it's totally fine. We have people like that. Like, Gus Benson's so fucking cool. Like, his Instagram's amazing, and he does have like, oh, I'm hanging out with these women, like, look at my life, it's so flashy, and I have like all positive feelings towards him. So it's not about like, oh, you're hanging out with hot women and like putting it all over your Instagram. It's not that. It's like when there's just a nasty undertone to all of it is when it just feels kind of gross, and like, I wish that person wasn't representing poker.
Yeah, I guess like the question for me is like, you know what I kind of compare it to is like, when you work in a restaurant and you put on these like specials or you put these like cheap things on it, we always talk about like, oh, it kind of brings in the wrong crowd. We have business, but like, it's like, look at these people. They like, you know what I mean? They don't tip, they're like rude, whatever. And it's kind of like that. It's like, I think the question is like, will it bring more people in? Because I think it will, but it's like it's not going to be like necessarily, you know, great people, but like, does that matter? Because at the end of the day, like, money
probably doesn't matter to an online site, right? If GG is going to have mostly online events, you know, Rake is Rake. Do they care? Probably not. I would just hope, like, let's say one of you guys was a GG pro, I would hope that you would care, that you'd be like, oh, I care about the poker community and what like live events are going to be like for women and cocktail waitresses and dealers and whatever. And I wouldn't want to like promote something that would hurt the environment of poker that much. But like Gigi's an online operator. I understand like it's a bottom line thing. But it's like just because a company can make money from something, like they shouldn't necessarily do it. And I don't know. I think it's a tough thing for them. If like we've had Dan Bilzerian talk about, oh wow, he brings all this stuff to poker that Bilzerian does, and it's like, yeah, he will get a lot of eyes on him. I just hope it's not always as negative as it was yesterday.
Well, Gillian, I heard you talked about on a different pod that you used to be with a site, or you've dropped affiliations because of the way that they were doing things, or because you didn't agree with them. So, is that something you still feel really strongly about? Only working with companies that do things right?
Yeah, I think there's a point in your career where you realize that. Like when I first started, and that's why I have no problem with these younger streamers that are like new to the industry just signing because they're like so happy to be sponsored and stuff. But then when you start to be associated with that brand, and people on Twitter and stuff will come to you when they have problems, and you have zero control. You're like the face of the company. Like there's nothing you can do. And that was so frustrating to me, that I had no power, but yet I was blamed for every time there was a problem. And I didn't agree with the things they were doing, yet I had no power. So I think that was last year or the year before I left my sponsorship, and they were giving me a lot of money. But every day I was going out with my dog for a walk and just like crying. And I talked to my family, they're like, who cares? Like if you do a commercial, if you're an actor and you do a commercial on TV, like people don't associate with that. But for some reason in our industry, they do. And I don't know if that's wrong, because the pros don't have any control.
Totally.
Yeah.
I always, for me, it's like I mean, there's a kind of this matrix of like, the more I believe in your brand, like honestly, the less you can pay me, because I'll just talk about it for free, because like I just love you so much. But obviously there's a price. Like if you're going to pay me $100 million a year to promote your poker site, that's just like a little bit, whatever. Obviously I'm going to do it. Like, so there's always a price, right? Yeah. But like the more you suck, the price is going to be insane. And so that's kind of how I think about it. And because of the reason you're saying.
Yeah, me and you talked about that a lot, actually. Because remember, someone had approached you, Marle, about like Twitch streaming like slot machine play and stuff like that. I had been approached about the same exact thing when I was in New Jersey, and I was like, this doesn't feel great. And like, what if I turn someone on to like a gambling addiction? I'm like, I don't think this is worth it. Let's say that they'd pay me $100 million. I would do it. I would do it for a year, and then I would probably donate a bunch of money to like Gamblers Anonymous and have a pit bull rescue. Like there's always a number somewhere where you can do more good than harm with what you got paid. But like I'm with you, Marle, like Run Good Gear is like the nicest group of people. Run It Up, nicest group of people. Anytime they have events, I'm just like trying to scoop people to go there, whether I'm making any money or not, because I just believe in the people. And then as it gets a little shadier and shadier, you're like, ugh, I'm not sure.
Like the price has gone up here. Like,
yeah,
hey, you just screwed a player. All right, like triple my salary. Like
yeah, and also, but it's hard to avoid every company. Like I feel like if you have goals in vlogging and you want to do these, and you like if you want to put a lot of time into it, like you probably should take a sponsorship at some point that will like help you put in all the time, like make it worth it. And then if you just keep cutting out companies because they did one bad thing once, like you will have no one to work for anymore in poker. And I don't know, like, have you run into that, Gillian, after kind of like leaving certain companies? Like it gets smaller and smaller, the group of companies that you could work for. Has that been a problem at all?
Yeah, it's gotten really small. Like now but that's the thing. Now I feel like so free to say anything that I want, because I don't have to worry about like representing a company or even thinking about sponsorships anymore, which is new players should be thinking about that. You should be thinking about your reputation and stuff, but I just don't care anymore. And it's so relaxing that I can just say anything on Twitter and stuff.
Yeah, but they're, oh God, I'm having trouble explaining myself today, but there is a problem with that too, because like your voice is useful and you would be a good ambassador. So like when you decide to leave a company and you get replaced by a Dan Bilzerian type, your voice is now gone. it's become more like male focused and like possibly more misogynistic and stuff. And like maybe you would have like turned the company in slightly the right direction. So like I'm not sure. I don't think we should just be like, this company said a bad thing, like I'm never working for them ever. Because it's like then you kind of do just like take yourself out of the game, and maybe you could have done something positive.
That's a very good point. And I did actually turn down like a GG offer. And now they don't have any females. And you're saying that might make a difference with just like balancing it. Yeah, that's a very good point. But I don't know if I could live with myself. Like that's looking for out for everyone else, but is that looking out for myself?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what the right answer is. I just like think female representation in poker is really good. It's really good for bringing in more women. I coach a lady who's like middle-aged and is like couldn't find a little like group to hang out with or bounce hand histories off of. And she was like, oh, like she kind of approached me because she's like, oh, you commentate and you like love poker and I can talk to you. And I was like, well, that's really cool. And if I didn't do that, do you hire a male coach or do you just like kind of not play poker or what? Because I think it is like really important to have representation of everyone who plays like in all levels. And I don't know. I'm making too big of a deal about the Dan Bilzerian thing. I do look at him as like a cartoon character, but it's like the reaction from everyone has put like a negative light on poker again. It's like, I don't know, and that just can't be good.
I mean, I just like, I'm so hesitant because I just feel like we live in like the Twitter pro world or like the very small circle of like these people or whatever. Not to say that whatever, I'm equal to them or whatever, but the real world, like I have to tell you, like I saw my dad over the holiday and he's just like a recreational poker player. Like he doesn't know. And he saw like Dean Eggs like lose his shit and he was like crying laughing. He was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Like he watched it on loop 85 times. And I'm just like, Dad, like this guy's like legit insane. He's like, yeah, it's just like who cares? Like I'm just laughing. And so it's like that's the person that matters. You know what I mean? So it's like our microcosm of like poker Twitter isn't representative of poker at large. And so I don't know. I think that like it's tough again because you can't just keep bringing in people or promoting people that you don't believe in, that you know are just like scummy one way or another. But is that what sells? Is that what like recreational people want?
Well, so I think it was David Baker, old David Baker, who had a really funny tweet. I don't know if you guys saw it, but he's like, man, I'm still busy counting my money from Rafael Nadal and Ronaldo and Kevin Hart and all these people being in poker briefly. And like, it is a good point. The people that stars and other companies put a ton of money into, I don't know that they really saw the return, or that the casual player was like, holy shit, this super famous person is playing and now I'm going to play. I don't think they got that return, and I'm not sure if Bilzerian's going to give them a return on the investment. Who knows what the investment even is, if it's like huge or small. But I don't know. I thought that was a funny tweet. So I'm like, that's probably a good point. We didn't see like the second poker boom because a soccer star is playing.
Yeah. I do think though, you guys are assuming that everyone in Dan Bilzerian's audience is assholes. But yeah, like Jamie, you said you liked his content. So I think there's going to be a lot of people that are good people too. We don't have to assume that everyone he brings in is going to be misogynistic. Yeah,
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, for sure. And I just, it just sucks that the first day that he sponsored,
he makes that comment.
Like, why do you do what? You couldn't be good for one day and just be like,
you had one job.
Yeah. Oh man, I would probably have fun. I was like, I've had friends who hang out with him. Like, I like some of his friends, like Perkins and All American Dave. Like, they seem cool. I don't, no one's either all good or all bad. So like villainizing Bilzerian's not really what I'm into. It's just like, please don't make fun of women in poker for having a thought about this. Like, I was like, you've cultivated a brand that kind of like treats women a certain way. And if normal women don't like that, you should understand. You shouldn't like go on the attack, because it's like you've kind of done this on purpose. Anyway.
I think we should move on, because this is a very hot topic, but yeah. Fuck Dan Bilzerian. Let's talk about something.
Fuck Dan Bilzerian.
Yeah. Gillian, you said you play with him a lot, and I know you've played some sick high stakes cash games. Tell us about how you got into these games. Like, tell us some good stories from that time.
Well, I did like exactly what you're not supposed to do. Is every time I lost, I moved up in stakes to get my money back.
So you started out with the martingale systems.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like eventually you have to win, right? Like I can't beat this 1-2. No, I started out playing 1-2 and like I was actually like felt like I could never lose at it. And so I thought like, why would I ever leave this game? And then all the 1-2 players went to the 2-5 game because like the 2-5 open and they all left. I'm like, it's the same players, but it's a lower rake. So then I moved to the 2-5. Well, it's the same rake, but like, yeah, so that makes it lower. And then like the same players moved to about 5-10. So then I just like was following them. And I did start like playing like 10-20 in probably like my first 2 or 3 years of playing. But a big reason for that is because at my home casino, the 5-10 had a 10K max buy-in. And everyone just bought in for a 10K. So like my 10K, my 5-10 experience was much more similar to the 10-20 in Las Vegas. So what I was used to playing at home when I went to Vegas and I was like to the Bellagio, I think the 5-10, is it capped at 2,000 or something?
15,
yeah. So it seemed like so tiny compared to what I was used to. So I was suddenly had to play deeper. But I think I just learned really quickly that way is like playing against good players and learning how from them. So I think for me that worked out really well. And then same thing, like we'd be playing 10-20 and then during the World Series, like the 50-100 would start, or we'd play like 10-20-40-80 and then that would turn into 100. Like the game just like shift, but it's not the same anymore. It's harder to find those games.
Yeah, I actually I somewhat met you at PCA like 500 years ago. I don't know if you remember, but I found you to be kind of inspirational because I was playing tournaments and I would just go play like 2-5 or 5-10, and then there'd be like one big game in the corner that would be open till like 4 a.m. And I feel like you were there, like perfect attendance. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And you were, I don't know, you just like were like normal, not like showing up in a cocktail dress being like, I'm someone's girlfriend. You were just like grinding every day, and I thought that was really cool. And like that was a long time ago. So you've been playing big for how long now?
I mean, I know I feel so old when we start talking about these stories because it was a long time ago, but that's really sweet, Jamie, that you remember that. For me, that was Lisa Hamilton. Like she's the one that I remember seeing in Bellagio, like carrying around racks of $20 chips and $100 chips. I remember like the first time I saw her, she had one rack of $100 chips. And I'm like, who is this girl? And so she was the person that I respected that did that. And same thing, like she just seemed so easy at the table and I just had so much appreciation for her. But yeah, I always grinded the games and I never was the best player, but I figured out how to win.
Yeah. Do you ever play the part? Like PCA is the one time where I was like, I'm just going to try this experiment where I just like wear a dress and don't say anything and just be very polite and play poker. And I really did. A guy just folded a hand you should never fold. Have you ever done that, or have you always been just like the I'm a grinder type of person and like not try to play up your table pitch?
It's hard. Like I definitely go in with that idea, like, okay, I'm going to pretend that I don't really know anything. But as soon as you start playing with chips, I think people figure it out pretty well too. Like if you make but I think I go into a game already with that image anyways. Like I think people assume that I'm stupid. And then when they figure out that I'm not, then I think they almost think too far the other way. Then they're just like, oh, she's the best, because it's like so dramatic for them.
Yeah.
And I don't think either are true. But I showed up to a game in Australia actually and had a backpack on. And I heard these guys whispering like, oh my God, she looks really good. So I never wear a backpack now.
Else.
Well, you do dress up. You do a lot of like photo shoots, all these like characters and stuff. Do you ever play one of your characters? Like, or I don't know. Is that a thing?
I don't know. Maybe I'll go as Marle next time.
Well, people will love that. I'll tell you that.
That's great. Marle has a fake person on ACR, Marle Poker, so now she'll have one in real life as well. I think that's good. It's good because then, they'll never know if they're playing the real one or the fake one, and she doesn't have to worry about balancing any ranges.
Also, when anyone doesn't like me at the table, I'll just be like, the name's Marle.
Exactly. Just do it after you make a really good play. Not that you don't always. But this person on ACR is Marle Poker, and they're obviously like a really good reg. I've heard that they're like Norwegian or I don't know, Nordic or something. But I don't know if it's an insult or a compliment. It's gotta be a insult because you want people to think you're bad when you log on.
No, it's just like misdirection. I don't think it's that deep. I don't think it's like hateful or like, oh, they're gonna think I'm so bad. Who knows? Maybe it's a fan too. Maybe someone's just like, Marley's cute. I'm gonna be Marle Poker.
Yeah, I don't know. Whoever it is, I'm really happy that they're a good player because if they weren't, it would be I can't tell you the number of people who came up to me or messaged me on Twitter being like, dude, you own me again. Like, how do you always get me?
I saw your tweet. It was so cute that's what you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah.
Marle Poker. I can kind of answer that for you because you were first up on the waiting list, Marle, and the whole table was talking about their reaction to that. Do you want to know what their image was of you?
In Reno?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so someone's like, okay, who's next up, Marle? And then the table's like, oh, like the reactions were different. So then someone asked, oh, what does that mean? Like, is she really good? What does that mean? And they decided that, I think they're scared of you. They decided that you were very tricky.
That's a good thing.
I think I might have been dating Berkey at this time. So that might have been part of it. They're like, is she going to 5X open? Is she just going to start like, you just never know. Like,
is she going to use a 12-syllable word that nobody knows?
Yeah. Just stuff that no one's even thought of. Like, they didn't know if he was telling me that. Well, I don't know. I think that's a compliment. I actually know a lot of those guys well. So I wonder who it was at the table because a lot of them I know pretty well. So I don't know why they'd have any reason to be scared of me. But
well, you know what? Like that day, it wasn't a lot of the locals. It was more of like the streamers and stuff. So online players. And I remember like you and I being in a hand, and then I think I mentioned something that one of the ones I'd seen of yours on TV, and you're like, oh, I don't always play like that. And I think that's completely how these people saw you. Like they've seen you do some really weird stuff on TV, and then live you can play pretty solid, but that messes with them.
Well, yeah, part of that too is I recently watched like one of the biggest games I ever played at the time, and like the first time I played on Friday Night Poker, I think, and I was just like doing insane shit. And I was just talking about it with a friend of mine, Lynn, who's great, who's been playing on Poker After Dark, and she was like, I was just in this pot with Dwan, and I just like, you just like spaz because you just like are on TV. It's like a huge game. You just like, you have to get that out of your system. I think the first few times you play big on TV, and honestly, like it's really it just like takes time, I think. And I definitely did that. So I think that people like have seen that maybe, and they're like, oh, I do insane shit privately too. I don't want to make it seem like I'm a nit privately because I just do insane shit in general.
I think it's hard to do, like the televised games I've been on, I feel pressure to not be a nit, but like I kind of am a nit. Like that's just, I'm like, I skew towards like the tighter side. So then when I try to be like a different person just because, oh, I've been folding too much and like people are going to say I'm a nit, that's when you play your worst hands. Like when it's just, you feel pressure to like make something happen. It's like your cards aren't going to change just because you feel like you have to make something happen. So all of a sudden you're just like 3 and 4 betting dumbass hands and out of your comfort zone. And then I don't know, there definitely is something about that though, where you just feel like something is expected of you because there's cameras on, and it's poker. Like sometimes it'll just be a little boring.
I have to give myself a pep talk now before I go on. I get myself a pep talk being like, hey, if you go in there and just fold for 4 hours, that's what you do. Like if there's no spots, there's no spots. Like, you know what I mean? You're going to see 100 hands, nothing. You might just get dealt out. Okay. You get dealt out, you have a drink. Like I have to give myself a pep talk because otherwise I just start pushing and I start looking for shit to make shit happen and go crazy. So, you know, live and learn. I have my little hacks I do.
What's your mantra, Gillian, before you go play a big game?
Oh, what's my mantra? I still get nervous. Like but it's excitement. But yet, like, for some reason, at a live poker table is the most comfortable I am. Like, that's where I feel like I'm my most self, but yet I still get, like, excited and stuff. Do I have an actual mantra? I normally tell myself try not to bluff my first buy-in, but I always do anyways. But it normally works out because it's exactly like the Marle situation. Like, that's all the people remember is that ridiculous bluff you made. One of my last live games, I got to cold 6-bet bluff open. Like, so, and you so rarely get to do that. And then after that, and it was like ace 4. It wasn't even suited. So it's really bad that I did that, but I got called off by kings and then I hit. But then the entire session, and it was one of my largest sessions ever because the entire session, people just kept on paying me off. And then I actually got like real hands. Like, they did not want to be bluffed again. And for some reason, they can't switch that off in their head that, hey, she's not going to do that all the time.
Yeah. There are actually like phenomena in psychology that addresses that. And I'm going back like 100 years to college, but it was the recency and primacy effect. So primacy was like first impressions. That's why they say first impressions are so important, because our brain's just like, it's when you get the most new information. So you weight them the hardest for a really long time. And then recency, the very last thing that your brain took in. So it's like, if someone sees you and says, girls are tight players, they're always going to be tight players, like that'll have a place in their head. And then the most recent thing you did is going to have another place in their head. And then all the stuff in the middle, like if you play 10 solid hands in the middle of being like super tight in the beginning and then a psychopath at the end, like what, I don't know how people see you, but it is funny to like try to understand that stuff, because you can probably figure out like what a casual player will be thinking of you and what your table image is based on these like weird brain things that we do. But, I haven't read about it in 15 years. Maybe don't.
I wonder how much like the female brings into that too. Like the fact that it's a female that's messing with your.
I mean, like profiling and being stereotypical is part of poker. I'm not going to lie. Like when I play with the women, like when a woman sits down on the table, I'm like happy. And I'm not being a dick, but like I'm happy. But like, I think you can know pretty quickly. Obviously you can tell pretty quickly when someone's competent in general, but I think that I'm guilty of it. Like if I see a woman do like mild things competently, just like not limping or whatever, I'm like, oh, like the bar is very low for me to be like, okay, like, and I don't know why I do that, but like, it's bad, but like,
it might not even be like sexist though. If you think about it differently, almost every good female pro at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
You're familiar with like the high stakes regs. So like maybe a guy who looks like every other guy coming in won't elicit that response because you're like, well, maybe I just haven't noticed him, but he plays here all the time. A woman, you're going to know, like, I've never seen her play here before. Chances are she's new, or I'd probably know her. It might not be like a sexism thing. It might really just be that you're going to notice her before that if she's ever played.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a woman in poker and you're playing regularly in any sense, in any fields, you're just going to stand out more, and just by the nature of it, because there's so few of us. So you're right. Like, it's just a matter of but then at the end of the day, like Gillian's been around forever. And that Reno trip was the first time I'd played with her because we don't.
Oh yeah. Different. Yeah. Like she's so far away.
So, and by the way, I mean, obviously like when I first saw, I didn't know, but like, obviously I quickly realized, what you're doing. And that game's a wild game. I don't know. I've played that game a lot over the years, and like, that's a great game. And yeah, I mean, like, I'm always like rooting for more women to, I don't know, rise the ranks and become elite. I think it's great.
See, I don't have that reaction when a woman sits down because I don't have much experience with playing against females.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like way more scared of them. I don't play any of the ladies events, and the few times that I've tried them, I've just been like completely confused. So I feel like I have like such a good read on male players, and then women, I don't know what they're doing.
I can definitely agree with that. Although I would give you 2.0 to play the 1K WSOP ladies event if you wanted it. Because I just think just playing solid is worth it. There's a lot of rec players. It's a good field usually. But I feel the same way. I've made my biggest mistakes in ladies events. The person shoved 3 times the pot. They just open shoved into me after they flatted from the big blind. It's Jack 3 deuce and I have ace Jack. I'm like, more likely they're just overvaluing a Jack than anything else. And then they just have a set of threes. And I'm like, okay. I just don't know. Like, I make bad decisions in them because, you know, you don't have as many data points going in against ladies. So I feel like that's just going to happen sometimes. And you walk out shaking your head being like, not going to do that next time.
We interrupt this podcast with an important message from our sponsors at Run It Once. In case you missed it, Sit and Goes have officially arrived at Run It Once Poker. And if you're a first-time depositor, we want you to try them out on us. If you make your first deposit by December 13th, you'll unlock 50 euros worth of S&G Select tickets plus an extra 20% rakeback on top of the rakeback already offered through our popular Legends Rewards program. And that's not all. You'll also receive our long-standing welcome bonus that matches 100% of your deposits up to 600 euros for 30 days. For full details, head to once.run/select. And if you're looking to improve your game, head on over to Run It Once Training, where you'll find the largest library of high-quality poker training content on the web, with 2 new videos posted daily from an incredible stable of some of the greatest minds in the game, including Run It Once founder Phil Galfond. Sign up today at once.run/learn, and you'll get free access to 3 of our elite-level videos. And now, back to the pod.
Anyways, I wanted to pivot a little bit and talk about your show. So you do this new show with your friend Maureen, I think her name is. I heard that you guys met online during COVID and just decided to use all your free time to kind of do this project together. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, I wanted to do like The View or something like that, like people's different opinions on hot topics in a live environment, because I wanted the audience to really participate and stuff about poker topics. But that seemed like a lot of work keeping up with everything that was happening in the news and stuff. And I'm not good at that. Like, I'll be off Twitter for a while and just like not read up. But Maureen runs a bunch of Facebook groups. And she's so good about linking everything. And like, that's so tiresome, right? Like doing all those research things. So I'm like, oh, she's the perfect person. So I messaged her and asked her if she wanted to do it. And she's like, oh, I don't want to be live on Twitter. I don't want to like Twitch chat. So I had to convince her. And Twitter's actually like, or Twitch is really, really good for moderators and stuff. And my channel is fairly small, like, so I don't have a bunch of the jerks coming in and saying things. They're really people that are actually interested in the topics and just want to have their opinions. And my favorite thing is when they disagree with me. Like, I hate people that are just like, yeah, you're right, Gillian, all the time, because then I feel like they're not even listening to me. But I want people to bring up good points, and so we really encourage that and debate them. And I want people to change my mind by the end of the show.
That's cool. I like Maureen a lot. One of the women's groups that I don't necessarily want to promote, because I think WPA is my favorite one. So I worked for a different women's group for a minute, and just hosted a big like training seminar. And Maureen was like one of my favorite people at it. She's just so good, and like I feel like she's so kind-hearted and so wants women in poker. She's just like any person he'll talk to her about poker, she's like trying to get them into the game. And I feel like she's so good for poker. But yeah, I watched a couple of your episodes. I think it's cool. It's like very conversational. And I know Marley likes this one. The conversations just kind of go like, you have your topics, but you can get on tangents forever and it's fine. Yeah. I feel like those are the shows that are like the most enjoyable to watch. So yeah, for anyone, plug it right now for anyone who wants to tune in.
Poker Headlines on my channel, which is hustlerhoney.com. No, twitch.com/hustlerhoney. And it's on Sundays at noon is our like new time. Sundays, awesome. Well, noon Pacific. I'm in Vancouver.
Cool. Nice. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Marley.
Well, no, you go.
Go for it. I was going to pivot somewhere else.
Me too, kind of. As far as poker streaming, what are you doing any of that these days, or are you kind of doing the show?
Yeah, like we only do it once a week, and that still seems like a ton. When I streamed poker, I streamed live without delay and cash games. Yeah. And because I actually find online poker extremely boring, but I love that extra element of not knowing if someone could see my cards or not.
What?
Are you saying?
Well, I like the interaction and then that element. But you guys, like, the thing is, most people don't know how to play against people when they can see their cards. Like, you still have to follow all the ranges. Otherwise, it's so obvious that you've seen my cards. So you can't just go ahead and jam on me when I have ace high if my range isn't capped and your range is capped.
Gillian, I will play you heads up for any amount of money if I can see your cards.
Well, no, I'm not going to play against you. I'm playing against these people on Zoom. What's it called? Fast forward and yeah.
I see what you're saying. That like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're saying that it's actually pretty hard to cheat well, or to you know what I mean. If you have to cover it up, that's why I'm kind of not so much in like sophisticated private games. I'm weary of that. But like when people are worried about 1-3 cheating and casinos, I'm like, do you know how hard it is to cheat well and actually use it useful and make it look good? People are just going to realize it because they don't know how to make it look good because they don't know what makes sense. You know what I mean? So
yeah, you have to be smart. Yeah, you have to be, yeah, exactly. You guys have to be like your guys' level where you understand rangers and you still have to be thinking about all that stuff. Like you can't just go, oh, I know their cards, I'm going to try to get them off the center. Because that's what happens all the time is all that like have ace high and I'll snap off because they shoved. And they're just like, what? Yeah, but obviously they saw my hand and their line doesn't make any sense.
You're a psycho. Well, I wanted to pivot, but actually now that we're talking about cheating and stealing and lying, let's talk about Mafia because we both spend a lot of time playing this game. Gillian's very sneaky. I really like playing with her, and I'm waiting to be Mafia with you more often. But what are your feelings about Mafia? If you want to shout out anyone in the group, and who do you think, not us, who do you think is the best player?
Well, first of all, you're always trying to kill me. Always trying to kill me. You agree with that? Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, you look very sneaky. She looks sneaky in this game all the time. I'm wrong sometimes, but I'm fine with the kill most of the time.
You're a really good friend who I absolutely adore, Radha. She's such an insanely good, smart player. Mm-hmm. She was making these cards last night, like trading cards of us with our picture and stuff. Then she put our quotes and everything. And like, I'm going to study those because those are actually right. Like she put our tells, she put our quotes. Oh, they're so insane. But
yeah, I'll put a picture of that in the pod because it's so good. They have me with my knife on my back and bloody paw prints walking around because my accomplices are Crouton and Buttercup. Marley, we got to get you in this game. It's really fun. I swear to God, it's going to help with bluffing because I feel like my heart rate doesn't even go up anymore. Like you have people staring at you on Zoom and like trying to figure out if you're bad or good. And I'm just looking, I'm like, whatever. And I feel like I don't feel as nervous as the first 2 times I played. It's like when you're bluffing in live poker, you have one person looking at you and they're not really staring at you most of the time. I feel like I'm more comfortable with like lying convincingly with eyes on me now.
Yeah. So obviously like, it's not the same, but like Spraggy and Tonka are really into Among Us. And in Ireland, like they play and Finton a little bit. Me and Finton like would get tilted because like there's, I don't know if it's like this for you guys, but like there's always 1 or 2 in the group, and for us it's Spraggy and Tonka who just monotonous talk when you have the meetings. It's just like it's not me, that's him, and I'm just sitting there like, dude, like I don't even care anymore. Like shut up, just stop talking. So I just got annoyed. I'm like, it was me. I'm sorry. I'm done.
You just give yourself up because you're annoyed.
I'm annoyed because they just don't stop talking.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, Marley, explain yourself. And I'm like, it wasn't me. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because I was doing my tasks. And that's something that pisses me off too, is like, why are the tasks so easy? Like,
they are really easy. I wondered that too. I only played it like a couple times, just tried it out. I'm like, you just go like this? What?
Dude, there should be like expert mode where it's brain teasers and they change all the time. That would be really sweet.
Yeah, it's made for kids. They need the adult version.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, you know, make it like a dirty game or something.
I don't know how we got to there.
Well, I was fucking this guy in the control room. Oh man, Dirty Among Us is such a good idea. I feel like you should create this game. We need someone to help us.
Anyways, yeah, I mean, I'm open. I've also played like Werewolf a bunch of times live with people, and like I just like never fucking do good, and I just like never enjoy. I gotta give it another chance, but yeah.
I didn't think I'd like it because the thing I hate most in the world is when I'm telling the truth and people think I'm lying.
Oh,
and that's like most of my experience in Mafia. Like, my quote from Radha was something like, "You guys only believe me when I'm lying."
Yeah,
and that's completely true. Whenever I'm telling the truth, they never believe me.
But also you have to realize there are people who are not believing you on purpose. So it doesn't hurt as much. Like when people are like not accepting the logic I'm giving them and all this stuff, I'm like, okay, some of you are bad. So they might be processing exactly what you're saying and then trying to make it sound like it's illogical to get you killed. So it's all just like, we've talked a lot about like acceptable lying in that game and what it means. We even have a psychology professor or a philosophy professor, right, in the group whose class was covering like acceptable lying and like in games in real life, like fibbing and telling people like, oh, your outfit looks really nice, and really like, oh my God, like all the different ways that people lie. And in our game, we have all these parameters for like what's acceptable lying and like what you cannot lie about. I just think it's so cool because then you don't have to feel bad. Like I lie to your face like every week and we're friends. And I would never lie to you about stuff that's like not in the game, but it's just cool to like exercise that muscle because it's the same muscle you use for bluffing.
I will say that I feel like the fun of this game doesn't start to kick in and so you get history with people because it's like poker. It's like the best, what I love most, the best about poker is like, you know, obviously I know all the regs in Vegas and I love going in and just battling them every day, the same people, getting history with them. And that's when it really gets fun because it's like, it's not about just the hand anymore. It's about the history. It's about, you know, their tendencies. And I think it's the same with this game. And I think that I just need to, because at this point, it's just like stupid to me. It's like, oh, okay, I'm not it. And I don't know anybody's tells. I don't know anybody's shit. I'm just like, oh, you are it? Okay, like you're it. Like, is the game over?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the game does get better when you play with the group over and over again. And I haven't really put time into Among Us. I think that's probably why I don't think it's that fun. It's so hectic and fast, but everybody who likes other games I like is so into Among Us. So I think I need to stick with it more. And I suck at it so bad right now. I didn't even know you could use certain buttons to kill people. So I'm just like I'm like following them and I'm like, okay, I'm using my little mouse pad trying to, and by the time I'm like, the person's just looking at me like, you've been behind me for 10 minutes. I'm like, oh no. I'm a fish.
Oh man.
But Marle, Jamie's like known as the best Mafia player.
Oh really?
Yeah.
What's your strat? Like, what do you do?
Well, I feel like I just seem kind of innocent and I'm always sneaky. I don't really know. I feel like I'm good at like diverting attention to someone else who did something shady. I feel like that would be my skill. If I was like a video game character, it's like diversion. Because they'll just be like, hey, you said this. I'm like, well, like Gillian said this really bad thing though. We should kill her first. And so it's always like, we should kill this person first. And then the next day I'm like, we should kill this person first. And all of a sudden I'm in the final three and nobody thinks it's me. I feel like that's it. There's not like a whole lot of like cerebral, strategy going on. It's just kind of survival until you can kill the other people.
You also like, this is why you can get away with a lot of bluffs too, because you've got that face where like you're so unassuming. Some people just have like punchable faces, like
punchable.
Is that me, by the way? Since everyone always wants to kill me.
Like people that you just always know that like they look like suspects. Just their face in general. They're born with a bad face.
I do want to say though, Marle, like our last game of that last night, Jamie comes back. She's Mafia. We kill her like firsthand, and she turns off the Zoom, and it ends for everyone.
That was not on purpose. I'm never in charge of Zoom. Well, Marle knows this about me. Yeah. I would rather be living in the 1950s with no technology at all. Like, I hate it so much. It always goes wrong for me. Greg puts me in charge of the Zoom call when he goes to sleep, Greg Shahadi, and I'm like, please don't do that. I'm the worst at tech. So I was just like, okay, guys, I'm going to sleep. And I just click leave, like, for myself, and it just cancels the entire meeting. So it looks like I got voted out and, like, rage quit and was like, fuck y'all. Like, you killed me. Game over. I'm taking my ball, and I am going home. And that's what it looked like. And I was like, oh, my God, I'm mortified. I was like, not only did I just get murked in, like, 2 seconds, but I also, like, ruined. They got the game back going. But I was like, did not intend that. But I think that would be a really fun strategy. Like, if you kill me, I'm canceling the entire game. You guys don't want to keep me alive.
That's amazing.
I had one more question that Mandy Baker will kill me if I don't ask you about. Figure skating. You said figure skate?
Yeah, I don't know why Mandy's so obsessed with that. Like, I'm Canadian. Oh. I feel like everyone in Canada either skates or plays hockey. So
true.
How
far did you go?
I was very competitive. I think figure skating is probably one of the most difficult sports. I think gymnastics is up there. Mm-hmm. I think if I devoted my time to anything else, I would have just 100% been professional, because I skated probably like 7 hours a day.
Wow.
And also took time off school. Like I didn't go to the last 2 months of school so that I could skate full time every year. And competed every weekend. Off ice trained as well, like so that you're skating and then you're also doing like all your off ice training. And yeah, I mean, it was just entirely my life. And like when I decided I didn't want to skate anymore, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, because it's just such a huge part. It felt like my identity, you know?
I 100% relate to that. And same, Jules Cornelia, same thing. She was like that with ballet, like trying to go professional. And then it was like a huge gap in her life when that was over. With me, it was soccer and it was track, and that's all I cared about in college. And then when that was over, I had kind of like, oh no, like it's weird to have like such a huge gap in every day where you used to be so like singularly focused on something, and then it's gone. It's like, did poker fill that void for you, or did you try other things first?
Like poker, I've never played insane hours. Like people always ask, oh, what's your longest session? And you guys can answer that. And mine's like, I don't know, like 7-8 hours. Like
really?
I don't do marathon sessions.
You've never been in a game where it's like so amazing that you're like, my hourly right now, even as a tired person, is going to eclipse my hourly the next day when I'm like refreshed?
Well, I definitely have this. Jesse Sylvia taught me this. I remember in Bellagio, like him, I was having a bad day and he taught me this. And that's always my mindset is you don't think about poker in sessions. Mm-hmm. It's a long-term thing. So that if I'm tired, I'm just tired and I continue the session tomorrow. I just don't think of it like that I should be staying here and playing. I would as long as I could, but we're at that point where I'm like, okay, this isn't making much sense. Like I'm tired of sitting. I'm probably getting annoyed at sitting and like just being here. It's time for me to go. Maybe I'll shower. Maybe I'll have something to eat and come back. That's an option. Mm-hmm. But right now I just need to leave the table.
Wow, you're so like, that's so different from most poker players. I've literally felt like I'm planted in the seat, can never leave before. Like I've played probably, I don't know, a 30-hour session before at Borgata when the game was just so good. Either I'm so stuck and I'm tilted and I'm not leaving because I'm tilted. That was like the early part of my poker career. Then also there'd be someone who's like a unicorn and they're going to drop 15K in a 5-10 game. And I'm like, well, I can either go to sleep and come back tomorrow and play with regs, or I can sit here, make a couple $1,000s, take tomorrow off and sleep through the day. And I always just picked staying because it felt like, I don't know, your hours in that seat in that kind of a great game were worth so much more money. How do you feel about it, Marle?
Well, I was going to make the point that, like, I don't know if you experienced this, Gillian, but in private games, it's not even staying past the point of tired or you want to be there. Isn't necessarily because the game's good. Like, there's an etiquette thing, obviously. Yeah. Like, Jimmy's game, for example, like, it's like a thing. Like, you know, you can't just show up because that was kind of like a semi-private. It wasn't private, but it was like kind of, you know, protected. And you can't just show up and play when the game's good and then leave. You have to be in it for the long haul, and that game goes all night. And, you know, obviously I've played in a ton of private games too, where it's like you get invited and to pick up, especially if you're up, it's like this very touchy thing because it's so much about etiquette in those games. Have you had that experience, Gillian?
Yeah, I mean, I would never just like hit and run, and especially in those private games, like you do feel that pressure. Whereas in public games, I'm always like, no, that's their prerogative. Like I get upset when people like comment on that. But yeah, I'm not talking about like hitting, running. I'm playing like 6 hours, right?
But even if you're down or whatever, even if you're just tired, like there is this kind of more pressure to stay, or I don't know.
I think if you're getting a private invite, I agree with that. I played in an app game where like we're playing Mafia last night and I had to fire up the game because it's a game with almost no pros at all. And it's like, okay, I'm a game starter and also like a seat filler if it's like 5-handed about to break. And that's kind of an unfortunate thing. You're like, oh, this is my night off from poker, but if I want to continue playing in this game, I have to do this. And that's an etiquette thing. It's like you can't just bum hunt if you're like lucky to have the seat to start with. So you kind of have to just make all these amends to like your regular schedule because of that. And I don't know, I haven't been in like huge game. Like Poker Night in America sometimes were big games, and like Poker Go, and it's like if you were up 2 buy-ins and you're just like, well, this is bigger than the game I normally play, thanks guys, and left, it would look so horrible. So I don't know, you don't always get to make your own decisions, but I feel like you have a really healthy mindset to say, I'm tired, I'm leaving. And I feel like that took me 10 years of poker to be able to do that. You've always been like that?
Pretty much, but it also means that I don't really understand addiction, and because I don't have an addictive personality at all. Mm-hmm. And so then when people make these comments about like how bad promoting gambling sites are and stuff like that, and even poker, because it leads to that, I say the wrong things because I don't understand. There's nothing that I'm addicted to. Like maybe my dog, like maybe cuddling my dog is like one thing that I really like actually physically miss when I can't have it. But other than that, I don't understand addiction. So I make bad comments about it.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. I understand it in the terms of Mafia only because I'm like, I was like, oh, I have to play this poker game. And a normal person would be like, I have to go, guys, because I have to focus on this game. Instead, I'm just like, well, I guess I have to play during Mafia. I'm not going to leave the game. I'm more addicted to that. But that's interesting. You think, I think promoting poker is fine. There's always going to be people who are going to take too far and have a problem with it.
But how is that different than slots? That's why I thought about it, because you're like, oh, I don't want people to get addicted to slots. But what about getting addicted to poker?
Because there's a legitimate chance to make a career out of it. There's an entertainment value. There's social like entertainment that people get out of it. I think there's a lot more positives with poker, and there's a chance that you can actually get good and win money and have it be a career. I don't think it's like if you're targeting someone with a gambling problem on purpose because they're going to help you make more rake and things like that, that's awful. But I don't know. I think it's a game where like video gaming can be bad for people too, but it's good for the majority of people. It's fun for the majority of people. So I don't think promoting poker and video gaming and stuff like that is quite as harmful as promoting a negative EV game that like is more addictive. Like I think blackjack and slots are like highly addictive for a lot of people, where I don't know, poker does have that small percentage where people will get addicted, but I don't think it's quite as high. I don't know. What are your feelings?
I think when you start getting like above 510 and like private games and stuff, I think the problem is like people don't necessarily have to have a problem. Maybe they can even afford it, but it's like you see people coming in losing millions of dollars a year consistently. It's not that you're preying on them having a problem. It's like it becomes very predatory. It definitely has a predatory nature. And I think that that's just how it is. Like I'm not saying that it's like completely black and white like that, like whatever, but that's the nature of high stakes private games. And that's what it is. So like you have to keep you convincing these action players to come back, maintaining those relationships, knowing that, sure, they might be a multi-millionaire and they can afford to lose $5 million a year, but like that's that's the game. You know what I mean? And I like feel icky about it. Not that I'm the one doing that, because I don't have any pull in these games or whatever, but that's just like a part of poker. That's just the nature of the game.
It's been around forever like that too. Games I used to play in underground games in New York were like that, where there's this guy, Jack, who would say, I have to leave by midnight. Like my wife is going to kill me, and make sure I leave by midnight. And the best I could do is be like, hey, Jack, it's like 11:45. Like you're going to leave soon. And he's stuck 3 buy-ins. He's never leaving. That's the best you can do. I'm like, that person's making a decision for themselves. Like, I don't know, we're not, yeah, it's like targeting those people to try to make them to stay is when I feel like you way cross the line to being an asshole and like being very predatory. But sitting in the seat and having the game be full and that person gets to make this decision for themselves, I'm not really sure like what you can do.
I remember playing at Commerce, and this kid sits down at, I think it was the 1020, and he bought him for like a really weird amount, like 33,500 or something. And someone said to him like, oh, what is that? Is that your tuition? And I guess he was like normally a 2.5 player or something. And then he's like, yeah, it's my tuition.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was my ethical dilemma. I'm like, okay, like it's his choice to do this, but, and then, poker players always say, oh, if you don't take it, someone else will, and stuff like that. And I don't know. But he lost everything.
Oh no.
I left and he had like 5K on the table and he was playing this guy heads up, and I came back later in the night. I wanted to see, but yeah, he lost it all. But everyone else is like, don't worry, he'll just call his mommy and daddy and they'll give it to him and stuff.
Who knows? Oh man. So maybe you're saying Dan Bilzerian's like the perfect representative for poker. When poker's kind of scummy and there is like this like underbelly that no one wants to talk about. Like maybe there is a spot just to come full circle for like somebody who isn't, Mother Teresa. I don't know. I just think maybe we shouldn't spend our lives in this forever if we have to kind of like apologize for the bad parts all the time. But I also feel how I said before, where I'm like, I think you can be a positive role model. I think you are, Gillian. Like, I think that you can show people that you can play this game for a living, not be addicted to it, be friendly to people and nice, be sponsored, turn down sponsorships that don't align with your moral beliefs. I feel like you're doing a good job of that. And I'd rather you like do this and like lead by example rather than just like, oh, poker's kind of scummy, I'm out.
It's not, well, because I don't think it is, and I don't want to say that on my end either. I think there's just facets of it that get sketch. But if you're playing like low stakes, or you're playing, you know what I mean, low stakes tournaments or cash or whatever, and you set a budget, like it's the best, man. It's a great hobby. It's intellectually stimulating, and you're never going to get hurt. Just play in your limits and whatever. But I think, like Gillian said, there's, especially in LA, because a lot of people in LA, I think, the atmosphere is a bit different. People have more problems there than in Vegas because they're here on vacation. They seem like they're more together. I don't know. Anyways, yeah. Anyways, so how much poker are you playing these days? Are you playing any cash?
No, but I'm studying like crazy. That's the problem. I was actually talking to Ben, like our friend from Mafia and like Radha's husband. Okay. And I was saying, like, I'm studying so much, I'm scared to play now. Because the more you study, the more you realize like you don't know. And you're I just want to perfect this. I just want to perfect this. Like, I want to be able, I don't want to, live poker, you don't really want to play like a bot. Like, you want to be playing a style that you can really capitalize on people's mistakes. But I want to have that in my arsenal. So I've just been really studying like the perfect sizing and everything. And yeah, now I've lost all my confidence.
That'll happen.
Yeah. So yeah, Ben's comment was like, yeah, that's why I don't study.
Ben's great. Ben Malinowski is so funny with that because he was like pretty much at the top in tournaments for a while. He's won some pretty big tournaments. He's also just a really smart guy. But he also has this like disdain for poker that I completely relate to. Because we'll just be talking about it and then we're like, what are we doing? Like, let's go do something else with our lives. But he does kind of love it because he gets drawn back to it all the time in the same way that I do. And he is one of the sickest human beings. I feel like where you have no addictive qualities, he's like addicted to punting. He's addicted to having the hand history that you would not believe. Like, we've been through some hands where I'm like, okay, that is a way to play that hand. Wow. But yeah, it's cool. It's nice. Like we'll back the Mafia group. I won't, bore you guys too much more, but it's such a good mix of like random poker OGs, like college professors. We have a bunch of chess whizzes, like a grandmaster and all these random weird people. But it does make me feel like happy to be in the poker world, to be introduced to all these people. But also it gives me a window into like, wow, these other people are living such a different life than us. Because I think you could just have poker friends. Like if you're in it for 10 years, I kind of do just have poker friends. And then meeting other people, I'm like, oh my God, there's life outside of this. Like these people are doing cool shit too.
I wanted to jump back to like Jamie. You made a huge compliment to me about like what I'm doing in terms of representing in poker, and I just want to say like both of you two, I think you guys are like kind of the face of female poker right now, and I think we're in a really good spot. You and like probably who's like the top female player?
Chrissy B. Yeah, Chrissy B is always who I think of.
Yeah, like, and Kristen Bicknell, like, I think female poker is just in like such a good state with you guys as representatives. When I started playing, it was extremely competitive. among the ladies, and there's this like wanting to put the other one down for competing for sponsorships and stuff. And I feel like we're kind of all past that, and we're just like all rooting, like as long as women come together, it's better for everyone.
I 100% agree with that. And I remember what it was like 10 years ago, because they did have a lot more models who don't play poker. And I remember feeling like jealous and like kind of mean, because I'd be like, oh, like she doesn't even know how to play. And I would feel that way about people who are getting sponsorships. And I'm like, it's not helpful. There's enough guys who are going to say shitty things and think shitty things about these women. And it took me a while, because I think in my 20s, I was like a little more jealous and was more feeling competitive with women rather than like cooperative. And then now I just feel completely different. Like I regret having those feelings of just like jealousy. And I feel like most of my favorite people in poker right now are women. And I genuinely like them all and feel happy when they get a sponsorship or a commentary job or praise for their game and stuff like that. And it's just such a more healthy way to go through this when we're so scarce. There's so few women. It's like wasting energy disliking them because they're more successful is just such a stupid way to go about it. I don't know. How are you feeling, Marle? Because you're much younger. Do you still have the competitive feeling more than
I definitely no. I mean, when I first like became more known publicly, like there were like other people were doing it to me, like comparing me to people, and like guys will try to do that to be like, oh, you're compared to this person, or you're hotter than this person, you're not hot as this person, whatever. And like I told you before, it's like last podcast that because I'm doing so much more creative stuff now, I'm really starting to shift my, and I really struggle with like, just like motivation to continue the process of like creating. And I find that I burn out, and from everything I've read, like the best way to have longevity with that is to make it a team effort and realize that like you like make it, you're working together, you know what I mean? Like helping other women and you take from them and you guys all you guys lift each other up. And like, that's really the only way that people can have longevity with creative endeavors. If it's just like you against the world and you got to beat them. And the problem is like that kind of mentality works. And it's gotten me, it's the reason why I've done like everything I did in my 20s, just that, like, I got to beat that person, or I got to win. I got to prove something, but it's just an unsustainable source of fuel that, yeah. Like, so I just like totally agree that like, I just like I want women to fucking crush. That's my genuinely. And I know that I like I talk very bluntly and I talk very sloppily sometimes about these things or whatever. Obviously, my early videos or whatever, people didn't understand what I was trying to say, but like I truly believe that. So it's really important. That was a very long tangent, but I'm very passionate about this stuff. About
yeah. No, I think I've enjoyed this pod because it like felt more roundtable-y with like the stuff we talked about, and there just is a lot of stuff to talk about with like women who've been in poker a long time, and especially some of the like topics now coming up. I don't know. I think it is important to like support each other and it's not a lot of guys. I think guys in poker have really gotten much better over the last 10 years. There used to be more like sleaziness and stuff, and I don't feel it as much anymore. And like some other people might be subjected to it still. You never really know what people are going through. But I don't think it's most guys. But I do think when the opportunity comes up, like I told you, Marle, when I was like, yeah, Marle and I are going to do this like podcast. Like, oh, do you like her? What do you think she's like? Do you think she's like this? And I was just getting asked all these weird questions, or I was just like, if I just said I was doing it with like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast and like Phil Galfon's going to be my partner. There's not going to be like all these follow-up questions about,
he's probably not a good example though, because he's like universally loved.
Of course. But I was saying if it was just a guy, I don't think I get all these follow-up questions about like if Marle's like a rotten person or if she's dating this person or what do I think of her. And I feel like I got a lot of those questions and I was like, well, I don't really know her yet. Like, can I answer that way? Like that, you should probably get to know someone before you have a very firm stance on like everything about their personality. But I think that happens when new women come into poker. People make snap judgments because they're forced to, because they're asked about it instantly before giving the person a fair chance. So I'm like trying to be more cognizant of that when there's new women in poker, to just let them have a whole personality and not just be like, oh, they're hot and they're splashy at poker and that's who they are and whatever. It's just, give them a chance to actually show who they are before you start talking about them at all.
Well, this has been very therapeutic, you guys. Thank you today. This was great. Wow.
Yeah.
No, genuinely, this was awesome. Gillian, any chance we get you out here in Vegas anytime soon?
I heard they extended the border closure.
Oh, is Canada closed?
Yeah, Americans aren't allowed to go there. So if I came, I'd have to do quarantine for 14 days. Yeah.
Oh, you have to quarantine.
On the way back. Yeah, we don't want you guys bringing your disease over
totally
here.
Fair. Totally fair. I feel like I would pay money to be able to hang out in Canada and have a normal life right now for a few months. So I doubt you should really come here in the midst of all this.
You should do that. Schwann's trying to get me to get a U.S. boyfriend to bring over here. She's trying to rescue all you guys, and there's some type of visa. So she's like, yeah, just fine. We need to rescue all of them. We need the guys to come. So yeah, there's a visa.
Yeah, I don't know why you're so close-minded. You just went straight to boyfriend. I'm like, I am a fantastic dog walker. I will play Mafia with you whenever you want. Yeah, I can bake. I can't really cook, but I bake really good stuff. Just let me know. Let me know what I should work on to get that application through.
Okay, stop trying to kill me, for one thing. But other than that, yeah, Schwann suggested boyfriend. I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, I was just checking.
Yeah, I'm open.
Cool. So watch Gillian's show on Hustler Honey on Twitch, Sundays at noon. And keep an eye out for her in some big cash games near you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks. Bye, guys. See ya.
Bye.